So we're going to go ahead and start with our first poll, and that is, how are you currently incorporating Common Core into your social studies classroom? Are you doing collaborative learning? Are you having students use evidence from text to support their analysis of primary and secondary sources, etc.? So how are you using Common Core in your social studies classroom? And also if you have other ways, these are just a few that I picked out, but if you have other ways that you're using Common Core in your classroom, please go ahead and use the chat bar. Looks like 100% are having students use evidence from text to support their analysis of primary and secondary sources. Looks like there's a lot of collaborative learning with this group, and also having students gather information from multiple sources and assessing the strengths and limitations. Great, good job. You'll also see how we'll be seeing these elements throughout this presentation about CAP and project-based learning. And you'll see these Common Core connections throughout this. And we'll give you some examples of student work where you'll be able to point out some of these Common Core skills that students are learning. And here's a couple. I just pulled out a slide of a couple that you will be seeing, citing specific text evidence to support the analysis. They'll be writing arguments on discipline-specific content. They're going to be introducing their claim about a specific issue, distinguish claims from alternate opposing sides, and organizing their reasoning in a logical manner. And you'll see that they'll be doing sustained research projects to answer something that really matters to them.
And what I'd like to do now, what you're here for today, is to really see how CAP can support out the essentials of project-based learning. And I'd like to provide you with a quick overview of what the definition for essential project-based learning is. And this is according to the Buck Institute of Education, which is a recognized expert and authority on this topic, and is currently dedicated to promoting this in school districts throughout the country. And they define it as a teaching method in which students gain knowledge and skills by working for an extended period of time to investigate and respond to an engaging and complex question, problem, or challenge. This is a great description of essentially what the CAP process is, where the students will be choosing a problem or issue that they feel is important to address, doing the research, finding out why it's important, and completing a variety of civic actions to really understand and address it in a responsible and informed manner. The first element is, and the second element is a challenging problem or question. Once again, the project is framed by a meaningful problem to solve or a question to answer. This is typical of really at the center of every CAP project, where the students again select a problem or issue to focus on that's meaningful or something important to them. The next element is sustained inquiry, and this is really where the civic actions come to play. A variety of sustained civic actions, and to really get to the bottom of why the problem is important and what are some ways that they can actually address it and make an impact on it. Because what we want students to really feel comfortable as a result of their CAP experience is that they have the ability to influence the decisions of policymakers in their community. The next element is authenticity. The project features real-world context, and as I said once again, the focus of every CAP project is really something that the students are experiencing in their daily lives, something that they feel affects the quality of not only their lives, but their friends and their family and loved ones. The next element, student voice and choice. The entire CAP, as the students are developing their CAP projects, the students are really in charge of what the goal will be, what the objectives will be, and really deciding each step of the developing their CAP project. So the CAP projects are completely student directed. They receive some coaching from the CAP website and feedback from teachers, but it's really them who decides what each step of their CAP project will be. The next element is reflection. At the end of the CAP project, students are asked to fill out, and you'll be able to see this later on in the webinar, CAP Planner, which is a project report where they reflect on the knowledge and skills that they've been able to not only learn and develop, but also contribute. And we like to ask the students at this point of the project, if they had to do this project again, how would they do it differently? And this is really important because if there's another group of students who wants to address the same issue, say the next semester, instead of starting from scratch, they can look at what a previous group of students might have done in order to address that project and pick up where they left off. Critique and revision, students give, receive, and use feedback. This is essentially natural outcomes of the civic action process. As they're completing the civic action, interviewing people in their community, interviewing community groups, policymakers, their peers, and neighbors, this is where they're going to be not only providing information, receiving information, and using that feedback to continue fine-tuning their CAP project. And finally, public product. Students make their project work public by explaining, displaying, and presenting it to people beyond the classroom. We have several opportunities for students to do this, but I think what we're going to do right now is what we like to do is show you an example of a public product created by students in Bell Gardens, and the topic of this is a public service announcement. Actually, it's one of their CAPfolio projects, and the subject of this particular product is the potential of adopting a plastic bag ban in Bell Gardens. So as you're looking at this, I'd like you to take special note of looking at where you see some of the elements of project-based learning become evident in this video.
For as long as it has existed, the plastic bag has been praised to accommodate our lifestyle and has been a service to many. Our policy is not new in California, but until now, banning the plastic bag was unheard of in our own city. Plastic bags are a hazard to the environment since they are not biodegradable. They are used in massive quantities and require a large amount of energy for production. We propose to ban the plastic bag in our city, Bell Gardens, and upgrade to reusable bags.
Civic action number 1. We did our research on our topic and found that more than 72 California cities and countries around the world have adopted policies to ban the use of plastic bags. We found that most plastic bags are often misused and that the plastic does not only contaminate our environment, but jeopardize our health as well.
Civic action number 2.
We interviewed Mayor Pro Tem Sergio Infanzon to discuss his opinions on the policy. He had us considering: will banning plastic bags take away the job from residents who work in manufacturing them? And what will be the community's reaction? He also advised us on how to approach the residents of Bell Gardens and the City Council about our issue concerning the ban of plastic bags.
Civic action number 3. We moved on to interviewing local chain store managers from Food for Less, Walmart, Super A, Rite Aid, Ross, and Marshalls. We found that along with these 6 chain stores combined, 3,017,600 plastic bags were being used annually in Bell Gardens. We also found that Rite Aid and Food for Less are the only stores with recyclable bins available to their customers. They all have reusable bags like this one on sale.
Civic action number 4. We wanted to hear the opinions of the people, so for our last civic action, we petitioned our residents of Bell Gardens. We found out that most of our citizens worried they would spend too much on reusable bags, and a more frequent concern was the difficulty in transitioning from the plastic bag to reusable bags. What we learned.
We learned that our policy will take both time and patience in order for it to take action.
We've also learned to acquire skills such as time management, communication, and critical thinking skills.
We were also able to learn different ways to become better citizens in Bell Gardens and actually care about what's going on in our community and actually taking action.
Where we stand now.
The policy was not implemented within our city, it's still under review within our city council.
Yeah, and we've actually decided to keep having contact with some of our city council members to pressure them to go forth with our policy, and we hope to have it active by 2015.
Advice.
A piece of advice that I would give to incoming or future groups is to definitely know what you're talking about, know your topic, know your research, and contact the right people that will help you out for your policy.
We're going to get that second poll out.
And what we'll be looking for is elements of project-based learning that were evident in this student's particular CAP project that they shared and described in that video. As you can see, there was a lot of civic actions that they completed. Definitely engaging and networking with a lot of the players in their community, or at least those that were directly related to the topic that they were trying to address. And that's one thing about the CAP experience, as I tell students all the time, you need to network to get work, and that's particularly important for seniors in high school who are just about to graduate. Bell Gardens in particular, students have made some very important connections that they've sustained beyond graduation, and we've had CAP alumni serve in internships at City Hall in the offices of the mayor or the city council member that they happen to interview for their project. Yes, there's the poll right now. So once again, elements of project-based learning that were evident in this particular CAP project. And I'm seeing, well, 100% student voice and choice. Definitely the students were in charge of every step of their project. They get to choose. And what's really important about the CAP projects is that the students are not trying to necessarily solve a problem or issue, but they're taking a step in the right direction. As I tell students all the time, the project is their civic actions. The variety of civic actions, how effective those civic actions were, and some things that maybe didn't work out and how they responded to maybe those setbacks and challenges. Authenticity, absolutely, and reflection. The student, it was really great that they included that in their video. Not all the students did that, but they included that reflection piece. And once again, it's a really good, what we would call a legacy project, something that another group of students can adopt as their CAP project and pick up where the previous group left off. Maybe continuing to monitor the progress of their suggestion at the council meetings.
And we're going to go into, I believe, our last poll, which is the Common Core connections. And the poll is, what Common Core standards do you think the students practice? So by looking at the video, listening to their descriptions, what Common Core practices do you believe that the students practice? I see the results coming in. Almost 100% yes, collaborative learning, definitely. There's a lot of collaborative learning throughout this CAP process.
And gathering information from multiple sources, they did a really good job of that, of really interviewing all the players that they felt that were directly affected by their particular issue.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, they also had to assess the strengths and limitations of those sources. So, for example, with the business owners who are the ones who are using the bags, they had to see if there was any bias there about their stance on the issue. And again, conducting sustained research. Yes, this was a sustained research project that they were doing in order to solve a problem. And I love to note at the end that this wasn't just something that they were doing, well, I guess it started off as something they were doing as a classroom assignment, but if you noticed at the end, they're saying we're continuing this. I know our work is done for our grade, we have that completed, but this means a lot to us and we're going to continue this project. And
that's a real important, I'm glad you brought that up, Laura. That's really important to note because in the beginning, students may at first just treat this as maybe a classroom project or assignment, but typically at the end of the project, when they reflect on everything they've been compelled to experience, they're really grateful for everything that they were able to learn. And you can see this maturity level even as they're describing their project. Everything they learned, the people they spoke to, they may realize that the issue is even more important than they originally thought. In the beginning, they thought it was simply a classroom project, but it really becomes a really critical experience and a really critical part of their public education. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to talk to you a little about the CAP program. So what is Civic Action Project? We like to refer to it as a practicum for teaching U.S. government because students are really practicing their role as citizens in a democratic society. And it all begins with those 5 core lessons. Those core lessons should be taught in sequence. Those are the lessons that really provide the content foundation for students to act on and really prepares them to begin developing their own CAP projects. Each CAP lesson is standards-based, not only state social studies standards, but also the Common Core standards. And when you go to the CAP website and you go to each lesson, you will be able to click on the specific standards that each lesson is addressing. As you notice from the video, the CAP projects are student-directed. All of the coaching that the students will need and any of the tips or resources that they're going to need to develop their project, they can find on the CAP website. And we'll show you some examples of what I'm talking about in just a few minutes. And as I mentioned already, and it's probably you already noticed, it's web-based and it's free. So everything that the students need or anything that the teacher needs to implement CAP in their classroom is accessible from the CAP website.
So as Greg mentioned, there were those 5 core lessons that provide the content for the students. Well, the planners are another key component of CAP. They work in conjunction with the lesson. And if you could tell from the video that the students produced that it pretty much follows this format. There's a proposal, they're thinking it through, there's the civic actions along the way, and then it ends with the report. The proposals where the students start, they describe their problem or issue, that connection to policy, they also have to connect their issue to policy. That is really important component of CAP, mainly because it's the sustainability. I mean, it's great if they want to do, for example, someone has an issue of homelessness and they're collecting food for a day. That's great, but in order to make something sustainable, it really has to have that policy connection. So that's why that's a really important component of Civic Action Project. And they'll also be sharing their ideas for their initial civic actions. This is something where the teacher can check in and say, great, move forward, I love your idea, or maybe they need to come see you to maybe strengthen what action that they might start with. So that's the proposal, the beginning part. I do want to mention when you do see the proposal online, it's definitely connected to the Common Core. You'll see the connections spelled out within those planners. So for example, it might say, what is your problem, and give me 3 reasons why this is an important issue, and provide evidence of why this is an important issue. The next, thinking it through, it's for students to dig deeper. So after then a little bit more research, they might want to narrow their focus a little bit, or it might change, their issue might change somewhat once they have a deeper understanding of the issue. And then they'll propose what their next actions will be. Now, civic actions 1 through 5, this is something that the students will be explaining what they're doing. They might be doing a petition or creating a survey or having a phone interview or in-person meeting with a public official. All of those actions are, if you look at our toolkit, which we'll show you in a moment, give students concrete examples of what civic actions they can take in order to move their civic action project forward. And lastly, it ends a report. Students evaluate and reflect on their CAP experience. And it's also a great opportunity for teachers to assess what the students have learned and the skills that they've gained as a result of their civic action project. And this last piece of CAP is really important. It's also important to project-based learning. Their CAP project for students can result in a publicly presented product or performance. So student projects can be anything from essays to PowerPoints to multimedia. So for example, the CAPfolio that you saw, we have a lot of video documentaries, websites that students produce, public service announcements. These are all examples of multimedia student projects. There's also a contest. So we have a lot of students who do those CAPfolios or PSAs, and they can enter that into our national CAPfolio or CAP PSA contest. And lastly, the presentation piece. This can be done in the classroom, even in school-wide, similar to like a science fair. It also can be community presentation, where you invite stakeholders and other community members and public officials to hear the students' presentations and to ask questions of them about their research. The classroom piece, the presentation, I know for project-based learning, they really want students to step outside of that limited classroom space. So for it to be true project-based learning, that presentation piece does need to be something outside of just the classroom.
So I think at this point what we're going to do is we're going to actually go to the CAP website and show you where some of these features can be found. So when you go to the CAP website, if you haven't registered already, you'll be able to register, and once you register onto the CAP website, within 24 hours, you'll receive a password, a username and password, and then you'll be able to access all of the features that we're going to show you right now. Now, this is your dashboard, and once you get onto the CAP website, you should be able, anytime, if you go to the CAP website, any page you go to, you will be able to return to the dashboard. That's sort of your home base. That's where all of your favorite resources will be stored. You can also rearrange and customize your dashboard, but we can go atop over those top tabs on the top, Laura. This is the toolkit, and these are examples of some of the civic actions we were talking about. And these are the different categories. If you click on Create CAP Awareness, you can see examples of civic actions right there. Creating opinion polls and surveys, creating a website, using social media. And if you click on any one of those boxes, you'll get a very brief, or the students will get a very brief resource, but a very good description of how to complete that particular civic action. They're usually only 1 page long, some of them are 2 pages long, but they're a really good guide for students to begin their CAP project. So all of those different categories, they all have a list of different civic actions under each one. If you could click on another one, Laura. Building support. These are the examples of student actions, of civic actions that students can complete. And here's an example of the petitioning resource. If they wanted to create their own petition, comes with the sample petition. Once again, things that students intuitively know they'd like to do, but they don't necessarily know the exact steps to actually creating something like a petition or a survey. If they want to do that, they can come here to the toolkit and begin to apply and complete that civic action. Can we go to Connect? In the Connect tab, we have 3 different ways that students can share their work and also consult with their peers across the nation about their projects. In the Discuss, there you go. In the Discuss page, students can ask a question or and also respond to questions from other students about their particular CAP project. So this is really helpful if they want feedback. We also have a youth board of CAP alumni who are available to answer their questions and provide them with referrals and resources based on their own CAP experiences. Publish, here's where students can actually publish written product describing their issue, why they think it's important, and what they think needs to be done. And share, here's where students can actually post examples of websites and pictures and other media product that they've created.
Right, so this is a great way to incorporate social media by using the hashtag right here, CRFCAP. We have students who are posting on Twitter, using Instagram, etc., in order to use social media to get out the word about their CAP project and to build a constituency.
And we also have contests that students can participate in. These are examples of previous contest winners, and if you go to the student action page, Laura, you can see some other examples of student product or public product that students have created.
And you can see there's a variety of different products that students are working on. For example, this gang violence in Chicago, students have created a website. If you go to gentrification and rent control, you'll see not only a video documentary that students did, but you'll also see their website as well as download a project brochure that they created specifically for their issue.
So you can see there's a variety of not only civic action that students are completed, but a variety of really important 21st century skills that will make them successful beyond high school. As I mention all the time to students, adults don't get paid to take exams or quizzes or tests at work, but what we do get paid for on almost a daily basis is to collaborate in groups, identify goals and objectives, and meet a deadline with an actual product. These are the skills that will make them successful beyond high school. On your dashboard, you'll see a Getting Started box, and it has very simple instructions on how to not only register yourself, but also register your students. We've simplified that a lot. You have 3 options. You can upload an Excel document with just a list of the student names, upload a Word document and just copy and paste the list of student names, or just copy and paste the student names into a message box and then forward that to us. And within 24 hours, we will respond with usernames and passwords for all of your students. Once they receive these usernames and passwords, they will be able to access the CAP website and all of these different resources and tabs that we've just showed you. And this is a typical example of the transformative effect that CAP has on many students. As I mentioned before, in the beginning, students treat it like it's a classroom project or an assignment. It could be a groaner. Students will groan because they know they have to do something. But at the end, what this particular student shares is typical response or testimonial from students after they've completed their CAP project. So let's pay attention.
Through CAP, basically, you get the whole being a good citizen kind of thing in like a small program. So you get a policy, and first you learn what a policy is. Honestly, I didn't know what policy is. I mean, I had to like look it up in dictionary.com. You get those skills, and then your attitude changes, and you actually want to go out and do something, which is actually really great, because honestly, I wouldn't have wanted to do anything, but this project got me out there, and now, you know, I've got the mindset to go out and make some change. After doing CAP, I learned that you have, you know, the power to make a change. And like Uncle Ben said, with great power comes great responsibility. So if you have the power to change something, then you gotta go make a change. You can't just be standing there like a bystander. You have to, you know, like pick it up and like do something that you think will make a change in your community. Government isn't so far-reached. Like, it's actually at your level. Like, you have a city hall at your community. All you have to do is appoint yourself, and then you're there. Like, you could just talk to your like council and everything. So like, it's not to believe that you don't have a say in what happens in your community. You actually do, and CAP pretty much teaches you that through the process.
And I noticed that somebody did notice what probably was one of the most disturbing things that she shared in her testimony, that this is a graduating senior. She didn't even know what policy was. She may have read about it in the textbooks, she may have had it explained to her, but it wasn't until she actually engaged it with civic actions and started actually talking to people who were in charge of making those policies and trying to influence their decisions, that she really was able to wrap her mind around not only what public policy, how important public policy was in her life, but also how important it was for young people like her to become engaged in trying to address issues in their community. And this is really the transformative effect, from being sort of a passive bystander to becoming somebody who feels that it's not only their obligation, but they are actually capable of doing a really good job and engaging the decision makers in their community. And this is the ideal outcome of the CAP experience. Young people who feel capable to influence important decisions that are being made about the quality of life in their community.
So I'm going to bring this back around, and then we'll go ahead and answer some of the questions that you have. But I want to bring this back around to the title of this particular webinar. How, based on what you've seen and what you've heard, how do you think CAP helps students get ready for their future? And you can use the chat bar on the side. Might think of some of the knowledge, skills, actions, right, that students have taken. All right, looks like we have some answers coming in. It seems to help them with college, career, that's right, civic life skills, working together to identify a problem and possible solution. Sounds like life, I agree. Wow, they're coming in fast. Right, now a lot of networking, collaboration, makes it meaningful, right? They feel comfortable talking to others out in the community, giving back to the community, preparing them to be active citizens in their communities, teaching them that action is necessary. I like that.
No, these are all really good. I'm seeing them, and this is exactly what, these are the typical outcomes of every CAP project. What's really important is also to know is how public policy really is the ideal entree for them to really become civically engaged on a meaningful level. Public policy is a unifying thread throughout the entire CAP process, and it's also what makes their efforts sustainable beyond their initial civic actions. So thank you very much for all those responses.
Right. And I think we're going to open it up now for questions. I saw that some were earlier, but we might have lost them based on some of the later responses. But while you're thinking of some questions that you might want to ask about CAP. And I know one of the earlier questions was on has this been implemented in AP? You know, CAP's been going on for many years now, and I'm happy to say that this program has not only been implemented in regular classes, rural classes, urban, suburban. It's also been done with AP classes quite successfully. It's a little bit of a balance, though, getting ready for the AP test and implementing a project, so teachers have done it in different ways, and I'm happy to maybe enter an email exchange or call whoever had that particular question on how this might work in an AP class. It's a little bit tricky, but it has been done. Usually it's front-loaded in the beginning, and then some of the major project work gets done after the testing. But there's different models that can be done in conjunction with AP classes.
Now typically, CAP is implemented in a semester. I would say ideally 8 weeks devoted to CAP is really great because it gives the students some adequate time to really dig into some really good civic actions, really be able to process the outcomes of those actions, and then move on to the next one. Some teachers have made it year-long projects, but typically a semester is what we have designed the program to be delivered in. We have 2 contests. One is a public service announcement, and that's a more simpler contest. There are cash prizes. The public service announcement is pretty simple. We want the students to create a video product that not only identifies the issue that they decided to address, why it's important, and they also include a suggested civic action that their viewers can also complete to support their efforts. There are cash prizes. The deadline, I believe, we usually have the deadline in January, but if you can check back later so we can finally get down that specific deadline, but we're thinking the deadline for that public service announcement contest will be somewhere mid-January.
And then the CAPfolio, which is more of a complete record of the student's CAP experience, that usually contest is done in May of each year. So that trash, banning the plastic bags that you just saw, that is an example of a CAPfolio and one of our winners of our previous CAPfolio contests.
Students typically, in terms of how many students work on a CAP project, students can break up into groups, and we think that's probably the recommended way, but we've also had individual students do great work developing their own CAP project on their own. For whatever reason, they picked an issue that maybe no other student wanted to address, and we want this to be student-directed and something that the students want to do. And we've had some students do some great projects as individuals, but in general, I would say like 80 to 90% of the CAP projects are done in groups.
And they're usually small groups, so about 3 to 5 students is probably ideal for working on a CAP project. Under the teacher creative resources, you'll see different ways to manage the groups. The planners that we spoke about earlier, we have a learning management system that you can see your CAP classroom. You'll see who's submitted planners and where they are in the process. So we do have all those resources as well as assessments available to you online. And again, the deadline for the competition hasn't been finalized yet, but it's usually once in January and again in May.
How do we support students doing different projects going on at once? This is what the website is designed to do. I don't think there's a challenge or a question that the students will encounter as they develop their CAP project that they can't find a resource to address that on the CAP website. Primarily the toolkit and then the discuss page. That's where not only other students doing CAP projects are available to provide some responses to any questions they have, but also our CAP youth board. So it's really the website that's handling all of these different projects going on at the same time. We help the teachers, whichever additional resources they need and any questions they have about accessing any resources. That's how we support the CAP projects overall.
And the planners are really specific. Not only do they ask specific questions, they have places for students to ask for more help, and they can read a little bit more into what the question is asking. There's also videos within the planners that help students complete the planners. As far as organizing multiple projects, again, this is something that's student-driven. So we have a lot of teachers who might have a CAP Friday, and so every Friday they'll have the students work in small groups, they'll get access to computers, they'll do different things, and then you can check in with them and say, okay, where are you? And you'll read their planner and you can see if they're on the right direction. Again, teachers are the coaches and students are the ones who are moving the project forward.
Now, do teachers have to be an expert on every project? Absolutely
No.
not. That is what the students will be at the end of their CAP project. You only need to be an expert in referring them to the CAP website. If they have any questions, they can also contact us directly, or once again, the CAP Youth Board. But no, really all you're going to do, unless they happen to pick an issue that you yourself personally already involved in and you can provide them with referrals and feedback, you do not need to be an expert on any of these issues. That's what the Civic Action Project is about. Students becoming informed about this issue, and at the end, they will be the experts on not only why it's important, but what's being done in their community to address it, in addition to what they're already doing.
Yes, Ryan, definitely. We have made class visits, actually, depending on where we are at a particular time in the nation, we can always make a classroom visit. But yes, especially here in Los Angeles, we visit classrooms regularly. So we're happy to pay an in-person visit to you and go over the website or any questions you might have, or also visit your classroom as well.
And we won't tell you how far we've actually traveled to make some of these classroom visits, but you'll find out if you request a classroom visit. But we try to make ourselves as available as possible to the teachers in the Alley area.
Well, teachers can never be replaced by the web. So, guest, I don't believe that you will be replaced by the web, but the web is, again, a resource for the students in order to complete their CAT project. It is very important to have those check-ins. Another interesting thing that we've seen and other teachers have done is bringing in community members who are willing to just, visit for one classroom period and meet with different student groups to see where they are on their projects and give them advice about how to move forward. Again, they don't have to be experts, but as most of us as adults hopefully are active citizens, and we can help guide students in the right direction regardless of what their specific issue is. Right, so again, what we've found through the years of doing CAP is that students do have access. It doesn't have to be in the classroom. They do have access to at least one person in their family having a smartphone. It might be an aunt, it might be another relative. There's also public libraries that have access to computers. So we haven't had a problem with that. Now, as far as the online planners, they can be printed. So they don't necessarily have to be all online. There's a PDF option where they can print out their planner once they've filled it in online, and then you, the teacher, can collect it in that way as well. Great. So just real quick, it looks like we've answered most of your questions. We have. We will be available. We'll show you our emails at the end. I just wanted to show that we do have some upcoming free webinars coming up. We're able to provide certificates of participation for all of these webinars. For today's webinar, you all will get your Starbucks card, so thank you so much. As long as you complete the survey that I'll be emailing you, you'll get your Starbucks card for participating in today's webinar. Some upcoming webinars that I think would be great is the Using Supreme Court Cases to Teach Common Core Standards with special guest, Erwin Cherinsky. For those of you not familiar with Erwin, he is the Dean of the UCI School of Law and fabulous constitutional scholar. I believe he'll be previewing the new Supreme Court decisions coming up, so definitely tune in for that one if you can. We also will be doing a webinar, If Men Were Angels, Teaching the Constitution with the Federalist Papers. We'll have another one teaching about China, and then also civic engagement plus writing, uncommonly good ideas. So please register for those if you haven't already done so.
Thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see you and your students very soon on the CAP website.